Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the segment. It is a huge honor and privilege to be joined today by an award-winning educator, entrepreneur, speaker, and cybersecurity researcher. Dr. Erik Huffman, welcome to the segment.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, I'm not going to be able to do justice to your wonderful background. All I'm going to say is that this is the first time I've ever had a conversation with a cyber psychologist. So I'm intrigued as to what that is about. I have a small idea, having watched some of your YouTube videos. So, Dr. Huffman, why don't you give us a bit of your background?
Yeah, so starting all the way from the beginning, or start from the cyber psychology interesting stuff.
You know what? I think it's important to start from the beginning because that's how we figure out how you got to cyber psychology.
Right. The quick abbreviated version is so after I received my bachelor's degree in computer science, and I started working for Walgreens, like driving store to store, fixing printers, fixing networks, fixing computers, and things like that. Enjoyed it. The reason I got into computer science is because my dad, to be honest. When I grew up, obviously, just like a lot of people, you don't have a lot. And I got to see my dad go to school, and he really dug into these computers. And then I saw our life change. I saw us go from, a really small apartment to small house to a large house to I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. And so I decided to follow the same path. And so I got my bachelor's degree in computer science, started working for Walgreens and things like that. Um, then I received my master's degree in my master's in management with a concentration in IT management. And so started doing some IT project management. I was of the mindset, just like everybody else, like only dumb people get hacked. Like if your username's admin and your password is admin, you deserve it. Things like that. Just super arrogant. Like, hey, I'm gonna lock everything down. Nothing's bad's gonna happen. And then there was a data breach on my head. Like, then 3 months after that, there's another data breach on my head. So I I was curious, like, all right, if only dumb people get hacked, am I stupid? Kind of self reflect. Like, is that am I stupid? And so I really started to look at the data into if everything we did, because I know what the technology we implemented helped. I know it, like the firewall, the IDS system, the IPS system, all the things we threw at, all the technology we threw at this problem. I know it helped, but why aren't we seeing any of the results?
Mm.
And so started some research, and then I just looked at the rate of technology, and I looked at the rate of data breaches, and they like mirror each other. It's like the more technology we implemented, the worse the data breach problem was.
Mm.
Uh, but still, in my heart, I was like, I know this helps, and so I started looking at the commonality, which is us, which is people, which sparked a whole different thing because I started looking at the psychology of people, the psychology of social engineering, and then there we helped found this field of cyber psychology. So my particular look into cyber psychology, there's a bunch of different branches now out of it. There's some people doing some fantastic research.
Mm.
Me particularly, I look at digital social engineering and cybersecurity. So in cyber psychology, there's also people looking at like mental health for kids
Mm.
on cyberbullying and things like that. But me particularly, I look at digital social engineering and cyber attacks and things like that. So went from driving store to store at Walgreens to start start teaching. And I started teaching, and I loved education at a couple of colleges, higher education. And then didn't telling the stories made me miss the reason why those stories existed.
Mm.
And so I was like, hey, I got to get out of the classroom. Let me get back into the trenches with my cyber brothers and sisters. And so then that leads me to now doing a massive boat ton of research to continue the cyber psychology push, while still working in the industry.
That's that's amazing. And you're absolutely right that the assumption is that, oh, like, careless people, stupid people get hacked, get compromised, right? But the truth is that some of the most well-funded organizations with the most mature cybersecurity programs are still the victims of an attack, right? And you, I guess, are the you've said that you were sort of in the middle of two cyber attacks, two
Mm-hmm.
breaches. How did you feel in the middle of those incidents? Like, as those incidents are sort of, you discovered them, you're in the midst of them. How do you feel?
Uh, Honestly, the feeling is scared, and it's like, how, like, what did we do wrong?
Mm,
That was that immediate feeling, is kind of, what did we do wrong? And you got to calm yourself down, you got to calm everybody else down, because it's like, immediately, like, who did what? And it may not be you did anything wrong. Like, if you're a small business to a medium-sized business, if a nation state wants to get you, most likely they're going to get you.
mm,
Like that you may do everything right and still get it wrong.
yeah.
And so during those incidents, it was just like, what did we do wrong? Who missed what? Who did what? And that was that feeling, and I had to grow out of that. As a being a junior level senior person, because I was new, received my master's degree, was in the industry for quite a while, but I was new to my position. So you're a
Mm,
junior level, senior level
yep.
person. You got to understand that, like, hey, you got to understand how to lead, and that it may
Mm,
not be anyone's fault. And that knee jerk reaction of what happened, and then it's by who did what.
mm,
That was toxic, and that's something, that's a lesson learned for me, was just like, hey, that's toxic. It's not who did what. Just focus on the thing, focus on what
mm,
happened, focus on how could you prevent it from happening again, and then afterwards figure out, like, did we do something wrong? That should be the last thought, not the first or second thought. And so I fell victim into that, was just like, who did what? Like, who did this? Shouldn't happen. We were 100% secure. Who did what? Actually, you were probably 100% secure doesn't exist.
yeah.
And so don't think who did what, just think what happened. And then after that, in the after action, or some people call it a post mortem, figure out who did what happened. Like,
Yep.
did we do anything wrong, or were we just caught with the vulnerability that we didn't even know existed?
So that you used a very powerful term there about, it was like toxic, in that it was more about the blame and attaching blame to an individual or a team versus understanding how the problem manifested in the first place.
Mhm.
Um, do you see that, and I don't know how many years ago these incidents were, but do you see that approach has changed in organizations now, in that there is much more of a focus on what led to that versus who?
No, the unfortunate answer is no. A lot of times even when I consult for organizations, it's who did what, and it's the focus on who did something or what negligence existed versus what actually happened. And we, as a public, as society, we do that a lot to these organizations. And so there's a data breach to some major enterprise, in his media's immediately kind of like, well, man, they're obviously doing something wrong because there's a data breach. Even cyber professionals, we play armchair cybersecurity engineers, like, hey, this wouldn't have happened if you would have did this. Knowing we know 100% secure doesn't exist as long as things are
Mm,
connected to the cesspool of the internet.
yep.
As long as that connection exists, you're not 100% secure. So I don't think that has changed yet, especially in a business perspective. A lot of times, if businesses think the public perception is going to be bad for business, or they're going to take a stock hit or something like that, it immediately goes to who did what. And then it comes back on, like, the CISO or something like
Yeah.
that. And then the CISO's like, well, obviously you're not doing your job right. And who knows what that vulnerability was? It
Mm.
could have been 0 day. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
no one knew, and we're patient zero out here.
Yep.
We did everything right and still got it wrong. And that is an unfortunate reality when it comes to this industry. And I'm not. I'm humble. I'm a very humble man. That's my mom, my grandma, my dad. They raised me to be, and I fell victim to that. And I'll be
Mm.
honest to everyone and say, yes, I fell victim to that when there's back to back data breaches on my head as a security leader. It was I turned to like who did what? Like this shouldn't happen.
Yep.
Well, it shouldn't happen, but it did happen.
Yeah.
How and it's kind of like what vulnerability existed. We all may learn something. Like I
Yes.
may put something out to the world and everybody learns something. And
Yep.
it's just at that point, like, who are you to blame? Like, sorry, you don't know everything about technology and every bit of technology that could be potentially exploited. It's not realistic expectation
Yep.
for a leader to their employees, and it should not be a realistic expectation for everybody else to the CISO or to the cybersecurity engineers. Not to say, hey, every data breach should be excused, no, but you can't immediately go there. If there is negligence, figure that out after you fix the problem.
Yeah.
Don't immediately point towards is there negligence first, then let's fix the problem. Not
Yeah.
fix the problem, then look for negligence
Yeah.
if that
Uh,
existed.
Absolutely. No, it's I think that's such an important point to make, because it shouldn't turn into a the first reaction shouldn't be a CYA exercise, right? Cover your
Exactly.
backside first. That shouldn't be the right. You also mentioned about the stress for the CISOs, right? The sort of some of this constant um, fear that they live in of what's going to happen if there is a breach on my watch, right? Particularly because it's like, well, will my I'll get asked, right? Well, you've got all this funding for your security program, and yet this happened. So this must be a key part, because we hear so often about CISO burnout. This must be a key reason for that.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely is. The last position I was at, I was the highest ranking security person in the organization, and it is a path to burnout.
Mm.
You're constantly worried about all kinds of security threats. And the business wants to speed up because the speed of business can't slow down, which is totally understandable. But as the speed of business just continues to roll faster and faster and faster, higher the risk exists.
Yeah,
And so you're
absolutely.
trying to balance the risk out without slowing the business down. But at some point, you need to tell the business, hey, you need to slow down, and you'll never win that argument.
Mm.
And it is very, very difficult because you're still worried about any breach that would happen because you may be the one to blame for that unless you have a mature organization that will tell you, like, hey,
Yep.
actually, like due to this, it's probably not your fault, but we still need to continue to invest in security. But that's a level of maturity we don't see from a lot of organizations. It's a level of maturity that doesn't exist in a lot of boardrooms yet to say the CISO, if there's a data breach, it may not be due to negligence, it may not be the CISO's fault,
Mhm.
it may not be the cybersecurity engineer's fault or the IT or security director's fault. It could be something that the entire industry is learning at one time,
Yeah.
or it could be a 0 day that we didn't patch quick enough because it 0 day was released day one. Day three, it happens to come to you, especially in an enterprise setting. Things
Yeah.
like that exist. I'm not like a CISO apologist, but it's obviously not fair, the level of scrutiny that happens to some of the degree that some of these data breaches occur.
Yeah.
Um, if you're a mid-sized organization and a nation state goes at you, there's not you're not investing enough money. I will tell you
Yeah.
that you're not
Yeah.
investing enough money to protect that CISO. That CISO is probably going to get exploited, and if you blame them, you can hire someone else, and the same thing's going to happen to them. Like
Yeah.
really, if the resources are strapped, hire whoever you want. and it's just not gonna it's not gonna save that organization from what's gonna happen. So you got to continue to invest in security, but
Mm,
understand 100% secure doesn't exist, and understand that, like, man, some of these breaches are just next level good,
yeah,
and if you're prepared for them or not. And if you want to prepare for everything and really minimize risk, that investment's better be pretty high. It needs to be pretty high to give your security engineers a chance. Don't have one, two, three of them, and your company's worth 50, 60, $100 million, and say if anything bad happens, it's on y'all.
yeah.
They're pro. I don't know many people good enough for that, and they're probably not paid enough for that, to be real. Like
That's
24-hour SOC with three people. I
yeah,
I I don't know, man. I don't know.
yeah. No, no. That's I think the that's a really like there's something in there that you said. It's not just about the board being fully understanding the importance of a security program, right? That sort of I think that maturity we've absolutely come to the point where the board, those in charge of making the decisions, clearly understand the benefit of a well developed and well executed security program. But what you're saying is that that's of itself that's good, but really the board needs to have the maturity to understand that as much as they invest in security, there is still a significant chance that an attacker will compromise their environment and they shouldn't then react saying, hey, right, what the hell? Like that shouldn't be the reaction. Be like, yeah, we get it. We get that the probabilities are still stacked in their favor.
Yeah, exactly. Because every conversation in the boardroom for progress for the business, most likely, I won't say all the time, most likely will evolve or develop a new risk.
Yeah.
And depending on what that risk is, as a board or as a CEO, COO, something like that, you need to understand that when you have these conversations, those risks do emerge. And are you going to mitigate those, or
Mhm.
you're going to accept those risks? Some of those security conversations that happen and you get frustrated CISOs are just due to accepted risk. And
Yeah.
the board, the CEO, the COO, CFO should understand that, hey, if this happens, this happened because we accepted the risk of it happening.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you accepted the risk of it happening and it happens, then it's just kind of damage control,
Yeah. Absolutely.
because if the risk existed and we thought the impact, the consequence of that risk happening wasn't going to be so severe, and it happens, let's make sure it's not so severe, and then let's revisit the risk. Do we continue to accept this risk? Most likely the answer is like, no, we need to pivot, we need to do something different because we didn't think the probability of that risk
Yeah.
happening being so likely. Or it was fairly likely, and then
Mm.
it just happened to happen so quickly. Like, do we think it's gonna happen again?
Yeah.
Is this going to be an annual thing? Is it a quarterly thing? Hopefully it's not like a weekly thing, but it might be once every 5 years after you do your post-mortem, your research on it, and then accept that risk and hold the CISO responsible to the risk. This risk was accepted.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if this happens, please protect us from it getting worse.
Yeah.
Not please protect us from this risk we accepted from ever, ever, ever
Yeah.
happening. Then you just need to mitigate the damn thing.
Yeah.
Apologize. you just need to
Abs- yeah.
then you just need to mitigate the thing.
Absolutely. And just that last point you made, because um, hearing you talk about this and so passionately about sort of understanding that if you accept a risk, you have basically done the due diligence and you've said, I think my odds are in my favor, so I'll take that hit. I'm not going to put more money. But you got to realize that there's still that risk still exists, right?
Yes.
By accepting it, right, you haven't made it disappear, right? So if that risk is exactly the thing that gets exploited, then you can't then say, well, I thought we defended against this. You accepted it, right? And I actually, to that point, our chief evangelist, John Kindervag, he says to him, risk is danger, right? You've got to, rather than accepting risk, you've got to do as best as you can to mitigate it, right? As much as possible.
Exactly. Exactly. So mature boards don't just understand security. Well, they do, but they understand that security is risk management.
Yeah.
Every security professional is the job is risk, whether it's using technology or whether it's implementing something or compliance is just it's risk management. And so the board should understand or your business development teams are understanding that it's all risk management.
Mm.
And so, hey, we're going to do this. Do you understand this risk? Yes. And then they'll have hopefully like a risk register um, populated out, and they know what they're accepting and they know what they're trying to mitigate. And then the security team, yes, they should be held accountable. You're held accountable to the risks that are on the board that you chose to mitigate. Like, hey, we said we mitigated this, and we found out y'all still running Windows XP for some damn reason. Yeah, by all means, like
Mhm.
by all means. But if this risk is accepted and then the risk occurs, like that just means hey, just
Yep.
damage control, and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yep.
Man, applaud all the men and women leading organizations with that type of relationship, because then the security team, the CISOs, they're not facing as much burnout because they understand the board understand like, hey, if something bad happens, I'm not out on the street in this hard job market. They understand that, hey, hope we can have things happen, like, and we just all go on damage control,
Hmm.
but certain things just absolutely cannot happen. Like if the breach happened and it's absolute negligence, yes, you're held accountable to it, and it's fair. It is a fair argument. The username was admin, the password was admin. Yeah, bad security team, absolute bad security team. Or you had unpatched software that should have been patched a year ago or 2 quarters ago. Yeah, security team probably should own up to that one, and your processes are broken. But if it turns into this software or this due to the business need, we implemented this, or we're not patching as quickly as we wanted to because we don't have the team that we need, and we told you what risk existed, and you said, hey, we could be a little bit behind on patches because we need to invest more money in this.
Yep.
And then something bad happens, then it's like, hold up, we need to revisit this. This risk is too high, the consequence is too high, the probability is too high. And that conversation, that is where all businesses should be. Like that's a dream for businesses.
That's an awesome summary of just a collection of points, and really about how best the business on one side and the security organization to support something on the other side should really work together to deliver the best outcomes for both sides. So thank you for that, Dr. Huffman. I want to kind of move on. Your field, and we've kind of skirted around this, but you're here because of your work as a cyber psychologist. God, I've got to saying that word fast is hard. Cyber psychology.
It is.
Um,
It is.
so let's start. Give us a really simple definition of what cyber psychology is.
Cyber psychology is a mix between security, cybersecurity, psychology of human behavior, and sociology of human behavior in neuroscience. Um, Plain simple, you put those three things together, you end up with cyber psychology.
Okay, I understand that, right? So why is it so important today?
Because 90% of data, over 90%, I think it's between 94 and 97% of data breaches involve human behavior,
Hmm.
involve the human element. And so I know even prior in this conversation, we're talking about probably the 2-3% of the problem. Not to say technology doesn't matter. Technology matters a lot. We're talking about 2 to 3% of data breaches. The other like 97% of data breaches involve human behavior,
Mm.
involves like human error, or
Mm.
involves social engineering to some perspective. When I started my research, I polled a group over 300 hackers, self-identified. They didn't tell me if they're white hat, black hat, gray hat, whatever. Um, they all 90 per, I think it's like 93% of them said they start with humans before they start with technology. Because they would rather, if I could get you to give me your username and password, that makes it's not even hacking at that point.
Yeah.
It makes my job way easier as a threat
Yeah.
actor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just that last point, right? It's probably a starting point is attackers don't want to work hard, right? They want the easy path to success, not the hard path to success. Well, most of the time anyway. It's
Yeah,
about the easy path to revenue.
yeah, oh, definitely. Like writing, like going toe to toe with a patch firewall is an insane task. Not
Mm,
many people on the planet can do that. So when you're talking about like, all right, you have a fully patched IDS system, fully patched firewall, fully patched switch router, man, like people that can break into that, that is like 1% of 1%. It
mm,
is very, very, very difficult to do. So that limits, like if you're fully patched up, that really limits how many people can exploit you. Um, but if I can get you to contribute to your own data breach, oh man, like that
yeah,
is that's love. Like attackers, they don't want to work hard because technology is evolving, patches are coming out, vulnerabilities exist, and then they go away. But you're a target, and so the longer it takes, the harder it can become. But if I can get you to talk to me, if I can
mm,
get you to contribute to your own faults, then it makes my job a lot
yeah,
easier and I can get a lot more data that way. If I
yeah,
become a privileged user, if I can become you in your system, makes my job a lot easier. And so most hackers start there. They start
mm,
with you, they start with me before they end up like, hey, let me go toe to toe with Microsoft or with Apple or with
yeah,
Cisco or Palo Alto. Not happening. Not they don't want to do that for the most part.
yeah.
Most hackers don't. Most of them just want the data as quickly as they can, as easily as they can.
And that's exactly why so much of security awareness training that we all know and love is so focused on almost addressing that human that tendency to be curious, right? So the education is around like how can you validate that a website that you're going to is trustworthy, right? How do you avoid clicking on that link in an email when they're offering you tickets to the Super Bowl for $5, right, in the VIP suite? So but despite all of that despite all of that we still click,
Oh
right?
yeah.
We still go to that website that we shouldn't go to, right? We still give our details on a phone call when the person is being our best friend. So, why, despite all of this education, why is it still not? Why haven't we got to a point where we've stopped this?
Yeah, I think my honest opinion is that we spent so much time on cybersecurity awareness that we haven't even explored cybersecurity preparedness. We tried so hard to make people aware of the problem that we haven't prepared people for the problems that exist. Like at this point, I would say most people are aware. Like, so you should not teach awareness. We need to start moving towards preparedness.
Mm,
And digital social engineering and phishing is nothing but malicious marketing.
yeah.
And every business knows marketing works. That's why we invest like billions of dollars in it. Marketing works. And so malicious marketing, why wouldn't that work? Because it's preying on the human. It's preying
Mm,
on the principles of influence for that human. And we all have these principles of influence that exist for us. And so it just depends on how the attacker is choosing to reach the person. Like your
mm,
principles of influence are different than my principles of influence. So the things you would click on are different than the things I would click on. And we haven't even started preparing people for the conversation that they, as a person, is going to be attacked. We've made people aware of technical threats. And on top of that, those technical threats sound very difficult to do. It sounds very difficult for a person that's not into technology. It sounds like, hey, you got to, not even like checking email headers, that's easy, but we start talking about back doors and things like that. And but if we broke the problem down and said that what they're going to try to do is fool you as a person.
Mm.
And in order for you to help us with the security problem, we need you to not get fooled. What they're going to try to do is play on your principle of influence of liking, play on your principle of influence of reciprocity, of curiosity, things like that. That will then sound like to a person, like an average employee or a financial person, a marketing person, like, oh, I can get this. I can do this. Like
Mm.
I'm not a technical expert, but I can protect myself from these kind of attacks. Then we start leaning towards preparedness. We start preparing people for the problem because awareness, I don't think, is a waste of time. I think we should still continue to do it, but there needs to be a step ahead of that.
Mhm.
We need to go a step ahead of that and start preparing people for the types of threats that exist and how are they going to target them specifically and what vulnerabilities they have as a person, and really lean into that. Like right now, it's very difficult to find a job, and it's very difficult. People are scared of losing their jobs, especially in tech. Tech layoffs are going crazy.
Mhm.
I guarantee you, if you send out a message regarding layoffs in a phishing campaign, people are going to click. It is
Mm.
not because they're stupid. It's these people are scared for their jobs. They're worried
Yeah.
about this. And those are the types of threats that we start to see that are most successful.
Yeah.
The days of the Nigerian prince are gone. You know that well, people still send out things like that, but when it comes targeted to the person intentionally, and people are scared and they don't want to think twice because they just want to help the CEO out because
Yeah.
they're scared of the CEO, because they're scared to lose their jobs, that is a human vulnerability. And
Yeah.
everyone has one. This is like bad person. Like, no, good person, very vulnerable at this point in time.
Yeah.
And in order to quote unquote patch that vulnerability, might need to be a message from the CEO. Like if there was just a layoff, people need to hear from the CEO and they need to hear honesty. If you just laid off like 20% of your company, I guarantee you the other 80% of your company is scared of the next layoff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, where does that phishing vulnerability, where does that digital social engineering vulnerability tie to? Probably your name, Mr., Mrs., Ms. CEO.
Yeah.
Because if you send a message out to someone else, I guarantee they're gonna listen and not want to question you because they're scared for their job, which is
Mm.
human nature.
Yeah. Yeah. So I only think one little thing I'll disagree with you on is I don't think the Nigerian prince has gone away. It's just that that prince is now armed with a large language model that is able to generate emails that are so targeted and so personalized, right? That you actually see it for something else and you think it's genuine and are tricked by it. But I want to talk about so about vulnerability, about human vulnerability and preparedness, right? So what you said is that we've got really good at awareness, right? And I agree, right? I think, and you can see that it's gone beyond just the like the work environment, and it's now pretty much like kids from when they're almost at kindergarten are educated on cyber awareness, right? And it's really important. And but you said we need to focus on preparedness. So my question to you is that when everything is all fair and lovely, right? Um, we are we are able to make very kind of relatively rational and objective decisions.
Mhm.
But as you know, that attackers, hackers, criminals are target. They've profiled their targets in such a way that they target them when they're at their most vulnerable.
Yeah.
So how do you build preparedness for a state, like preparedness for a situation when you are at your most vulnerable, and how can you still act in a way that ensures that you're properly protecting yourself?
Yeah, that's fantastic question there, because that is the step organizations need to take. A lot of that is on self-reflection, but a lot of that is understanding the environment.
Mm,
So when it comes to understanding environments, like if you were to go to a country you've never been before, I guarantee you, if you have a backpack, you're going to be a lot more aware of what's going on around that backpack. If you're a woman or a man and you're carrying like a bag, a handbag of some sort, I guarantee you're going to clench that handbag a little tighter. But however, when you're online, the physical environment around you doesn't change, but your digital environment, you may be in just no man's land at all. You may be in some foreign, odd place, but because your physical environment around you doesn't change, your brain as a person, biologically, your brain isn't seeing the threats. It doesn't quite see the threats the same way. Especially some organizations, a lot of organizations that I agree with a lot, they're the work from home. If you work from home, you're way more comfortable. So your most vulnerable state as a person online is different than your most vulnerable
mm,
state as a person physically. Like if you're comfortable, you're more hackable. It's just like if you're comfortable in your physical environment, you're more likely to be like, hey, I'm gonna have my backpack. I might leave my backpack somewhere and go back to it like, oh man, I totally forgot it. But if you're
mm,
in a foreign country, you're probably not forgetting that backpack.
mm.
But online, digitally, if you're comfortable, you're not like, hey, let me check this, let me double check this.
Yep.
Because as a human, like the default, like if it's written language, the default voice you read in is your own. And because you're reading in your own voice, you're receiving all of these messages, all these commands in a friendly, trusted voice, because most people, they trust themselves, they like themselves. You're not reading it in the voice of the person that sent it unless you see the name of a loved one or someone that you know. Then you begin to read it in their voice. And so, as an attacker, I can get whoever to say whatever I want to say, because that is what I like to call human factor authentication.
Mm,
You see the name, then you see the message, and then you trust the message. You know, you have to be able to check those things. So as we begin to go from awareness to preparedness, a lot of it goes to understanding environment and understanding self.
mm,
And if you understand the environment that you're in a little bit better position. And if you understand yourself and how you receive information and the vulnerabilities you have as a person, then you're in a better place. Because how a lot of this started off was me receiving a message from an imposter imposing as my mom.
mm,
And so, I know my mom's voice, Southern, black woman, and man, the most friendly voice in my head. And so when I see that, I receive that information, I'm receiving that information in her voice. And that is hard to be like, nah,
yeah,
that's just
yeah,
kind of how it is. And AI is taking that and it is flipping that like crazy right now.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, for those of you who haven't heard Dr. Huffman tell this story, I really encourage you to go and watch the video of his TEDx talk. And it is told in the most brilliant, brilliant way.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Huffman, just for a second, sorry, my son keeps calling me. He's meant to be on his way back from school. Just give me a second. I just want to call him back and we'll continue.
Hey, no
Okay?
problem at all.
All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you for that.
Oh, it's totally
Um,
fine.
yeah, he's fine. He's fine. It's just a teenage boy wondering why his WhatsApp is not working. It's the most important thing. But I
Of
but I
course.
definitely validated that it was definitely him before continue the conversation.
Hey, just smart man, smart man.
So um yeah, sorry. Okay. So, I think that was a absolutely brilliant description. And in fact, for those of our listeners who haven't seen Dr. Huffman telling that story about receiving that email that pretended to be his mum and sort of all the emotions that went through, I highly recommend you go and check out that TEDx talk. It's massive. Actually, we'll put the link in the show notes. So, um, when we're thinking about sort of preparedness and being able to be I guess being able to be prepared even in the time of stress and vulnerability, right? So all of those things, and those are difficult things to develop. Like how do we then build a robust cyber preparedness program?
Yeah, so it to do that, you have to you have to do two things really. You have to do a threat appraisal and a coping appraisal. And
Mm,
I encourage every person to do this on themselves. Not to say, hey, every organization needs to do it. In an organization, high value targets, you can do this with them. You can do a threat appraisal and a coping appraisal. What a threat appraisal is, what vulnerabilities or what threats exist out there for this particular person.
mm,
What risk exists out there for this particular person. And then the coping appraisal is what skills and how would they react if these risks happen to occur. And so as you do your threat appraisal, you just say, hey, how do I deal with this particular risk? How do I deal with this particular instance? What threats exist out there realistically? Not just to the job, but to the person in themselves that exists. So if you do it personally, you can be a lot more realistic, or you be a lot more personal with some of the threats that exist out there for you. Um, and then based on that, you can do a coping appraisal. And then that coping appraisal is, what skills does the person have, or what support system does the person need in order to better prepare themselves for these risks that exist out there. This Doing those two appraisals will put you light years
mhm,
ahead of most organizations, because these are psychological things that people should do, like when they face trauma or they're in therapy. Most psychologists
mm,
will tell you, hey, to do a threat appraisal, do a coping appraisal to see where you are. And just as a quick example, so if you were to do a threat appraisal, questions you may ask is, what could or should you do to reduce this particular risk of this issue? Insert like blanks there, whatever risk that exists. And what is your experience of this particular threat or this particular thing that exists out there? And then one thing, another question you can ask, kind of off the top of my head, is, how do you avoid dealing with this particular risk that
mhm,
exists?
mhm,
And so from there, you're getting a comprehensive understanding of the person and the risks that exists as that person is working within the organization. Um, if you want to go deep, if you're doing one on yourself, or if you want to ask a deep question to someone as you're doing a threat appraisal, is uh, how do you know you're upset? And when you're upset, do you hide it from yourself?
mm,
And so if they're realistic, say, how do I know I'm upset? Typically like I start clenching my fists, or my palms get sweaty or something like that. Like there's some telltale signs for me personally when I get upset. It's like, do you hide it from yourself? In others, like, yeah. Typically I just like hold that in.
mm,
Then it's like, so if you're in a high stress time, most likely you're not quite showing the stress and you're hiding it from yourself. So you understand that risk, you understand that threat that exists for that person. And then coping appraisal, with that same threat could be, and when this threat occurs, how could you view that particular situation?
Mm.
And then you go from it's called tri-layer thinking. It goes from what is the threat to what could you do about the threat to what are the possibilities
Mm.
of the threat. Like how else could you view this threat? Like that threat can't go away. How else could you view this threat? And then you're giving the person tools on how to better assess their, or how to better cope with the situations that they may face in work. And then it's one would be like, how could you change your response to this issue? Uh, and if you changing your response to the issue, you're actually giving them tools to change their behavior. So rather than making you aware of the things that occur, like cybersecurity awareness, I'm preparing you, I'm showing you what is existing out there for you, and I'm giving you the tools to prepare yourself for when they occur. Because
Mm.
if the threat cannot go away, you need to understand how you view it, and you need to understand how you can change the situation of this threat. You're better prepared for it. So if you're getting targeted emails, or if you're getting targeted messages or targeted calls, or if you're getting AI deep fakes from particular people, you can better prepare yourself for when you see those things
Yep.
that exist. Um, there's a lot you can do. So coping appraisals, threat appraisals. That would be the absolute game changer for organizations, because the threats that exist, if you're just picking threats, don't just pick any random threat. Pick threats with value.
Mm.
So like there's 1,000 threats for every person. We all know that. Like
Yep.
anything can happen. Pick threats with value. And once you after you pick threats with value, help the person understand what's their perceived severity of this threat, because they may not see the severity, or they may think the threat is way more severe than it actually is. And if they think the threat is way more severe than actually, that's the Goldilocks zone for someone that is going to click on something
Hmm.
and fall victim to social engineering. The threat is not even that serious.
Yep.
Like the CEO, they're probably not going to fire you. You should not be scared of your job. But the perceived threat, severity of that threat is all the way up there. And then the perceived vulnerability that they have. Cybersecurity professionals, we fall victim to that all the time.
Mm.
I understand technology, so I am not going to fall victim to digital social engineering.
Yep.
The perceived vulnerability is insane. Like,
Yes.
yes, you will.
Yes.
Yes, you
Yes.
can, because it's not a technology issue; it is a human issue. And
Yep.
then the associated benefits that occur from that, and then the coping is everything that I explained. And then one thing to add to the coping is just based on your coping appraisal, what you're going to build is more self efficacy, because what we have found is people who hate micromanaging, people who are self monitoring, like probably you and I hate micromanaging.
Mm.
I'm very self motivated. I don't
Yep.
need to be like looked at. We fall victim to social engineering much more so than people who rely on other people.
Yep.
Because I'm out there by myself. Like, hey, just let me do my work. I'm good. And because of that, I'm relying on myself. I'm more isolated. And because I'm more isolated, I'm gonna have to make decisions on my own.
Mm.
And so social engineering, you're really taking it and go one on one with the social engineer, with the threat actor. So you're more likely to fall victim to a
Yep.
social engineering attempt, just like I would. And with that coping appraisal, what you are going to get after that is perceived control.
Mm.
Can you control the situation? And if you have perceived control, and if you can align all these things together and you give control of the threat to the person, they're no longer looking at the security team as, hey, you're going to save me from every mistake I can make. I absolutely
Mm.
cannot save you from every mistake, because if you start joining the threat actor and you give them the keys to the
Yep.
kingdom, there is
Yep.
nothing I can do to save you. And
Yes.
so that perceived control, now you have perceived control accurately of the situation. Because right now, if your perceived control as a user is the security team's going to save me, or the spam filter is going to save me, we have all these security tools out there.
Mm.
Like, I don't have to worry about social engineering. Yes, you do. Your your perceived control of the situation is that you don't have control, and I promise you, you do have control.
Mm.
Sorry, that was a
But
long-winded answer to that, but
no,
I'm
no, I
passionate
think
about it. I love it.
I think it's such a great answer, and I think it's really important because again, as to like to summarize, right? It's that shift from awareness to preparedness, right? Awareness
Yes.
is great, but it's basically useless if you're not prepared to act on that awareness. And I think that you actually summarize sort of the paths that get us to better preparedness.
Yeah, exactly. Because like being aware is like there's if you drive in a car accidents occur. Being prepared is putting on your seatbelt.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
when you drive, I think most people, everybody should be prepared for an accident. Obviously you want to have your seatbelt on just in case if something happens. And also preparedness from the automotive industry is, hey, we have airbags and all these things, and
Yeah.
your car
Yeah.
is designed to be safer if something was to happen. And you put on your seatbelt, you're prepared for if something happens. We hope it doesn't, but you're prepared for it. And right now, we don't have no security seatbelt. We have no cybersecurity seatbelt. We just have a whole bunch of videos and a whole bunch of awareness out there of what can happen.
Mm.
And what we have innately done is psychologically we scared everybody who we should have prepared.
Yeah.
Everyone is scared of this threat that exists, but we need to prepare them for it because the speed of business is not going to slow down. We can't say internet go
Mm.
away. It's too
Mm.
dangerous. Not happen. It's not realistic. So we need to prepare you for the environment that you're undoubtedly going to have to live in and going to have to operate in. Just like with cars, you could try other means to get to work, safer means, but most likely, if you want to keep your job, you don't want to start pedaling a bike at midnight in order to make it to work at a decent time. You're going to have to prepare yourself for a potential car accident. Hope it doesn't happen,
Mm.
but if you happen to face that kind of threat that exists, have your seatbelt on, so you'll be okay. And so now is if you end up facing a very well equipped threat actor, especially now that AI and deepfakes are coming out for everybody. We can get into that in a second. Like it's coming for everybody. You need to better prepare yourself on the types of threats that you're going to face as a person. And it doesn't include going hands like going code to code with a threat actor. Like
Yeah.
you'd lose that. But if you can prepare yourself psychologically, you can keep them from getting so far. You can keep them from exploiting you as a person. Because right now, like 90% of the problem is not just like humans are the weakest link. That's not true. I believe that humans, we just have the most vulnerabilities. Like
Mm.
we just have the most vulnerabilities. We ain't the weakest link. We block a lot of threats ourselves, but we have a tremendous amount of unique vulnerabilities technology can't save us from.
That's that's fascinating. I love the seatbelt analogy. And in fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to see what sort of because as you said, right, the reason you wear a seatbelt, the reason the car has all the various like safety features that it does is because it's saying that in the event in the case of an accident, we want you to be as safe as possible, right? So with that, do you think a zero trust strategy, a zero trust approach, and we've spoken about how like an attack is an inevitability, right? The attacker will find a way to be successful, just in the way that we can never obliterate all traffic accidents in that scenario, do you think like adopting a zero trust strategy is kind of like having those safety features on a car? It prepares an organization best for that inevitable cyber attack.
I definitely think so. So if your organization, because what we've been talking about is trying to build like zero trust behavior in people
Mm,
as they read things or as they interact with people or other entities online. And so, as an organization, if they build up a zero trust infrastructure, that is that is the best case scenario for organizations. Like, it's not even trust but verify, is verify. Because we've started saying, hey, trust but verify. You can trust it, but verify that is true. Like, no, don't trust at all. Just verify everything, because zero trust, uh, from what it is not a product. It is a mentality, or it is a concept that an entire organization has to
Mm.
follow. You just can't buy something and say, hey, we're now zero trust. You have to implement a whole bunch of different behaviors. And so I would argue to some that you're not fully zero trust, even though you've done it from a technical perspective, if you haven't looked at the people and given them the power to be zero trust. And so if you're so authoritative in your behavior as an organization where they can't question you, you're telling them to innately trust anything that comes from you.
Mm.
That's not zero trust. And so I think one has to happen with the other. Like, you have to be zero trust as an organization in your behavior, and you have to be zero trust as an organization from a technical perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's so spot on. So, um, just sort of moving on from there, and we've um we've dipped our toes here and there in AI, right? It during the process of this conversation. So, I mean, and sort of going back to the root of this is in sort of cyber psychology, because everything we've spoken about, if we then now layer on the fact that AI is a reality, right? We use it on a day-to-day basis in our jobs, right, in our lives. Um, but if we think about this from a psychology perspective, it really throws a massive spanner in the works, because now, like, our ability to discern reality from fiction is super hard, right?
Yeah.
It's just that the difficulty has just gone up big time. So how does that play in your field?
Oh, it took a lot of things that I worked on for years, and it shredded it. No, all joking aside, it adds so much complexity. Because from a human, when I say you're reading your own voice, that's just what happens. So, like, if you ever like watched a movie, you read a book, really good book, and then you
Mm,
watch the movie and you're just all time disappointed because everyone looks wrong, everyone sounds wrong, and the person who created that movie was one of the people that wrote the book, and you're
mm,
telling them they're wrong. Because when you read, you build this character up in your head, and then you start reading in their voice and you accept that as the norm. When it comes to I can now take all that mental work that you do and throw it out. I can make you see what I want
mm,
you to see, and I can make you hear what I want you to hear in the way I want you to hear it.
mm,
Because previously, that's why, like, memes were never sent as like threat attacks. Like, they're
mm,
not sending memes because you see it and then it just all your biological defenses kick up, and then you're just like, no, that's not real. But as AI now, I can layer onto like the principle of liking. I can show you an attractive man, woman, or whomever, and then you're more likely to receive some of that information. I can have a video from your CEO telling you in their voice to do what I want you to do, and you're more likely to receive it. I can have a deep fake posing as you and send it to someone else,
mm,
and they're more likely to receive that. It takes the biological defenses, that stranger danger when you look at someone, and it's slowly dissolving those things away. And as we continue to evolve, because the goal of AI is to not be human detectable that it is AI.
mm.
And what that is from a security perspective is just like, I need it to be fake enough to where I can tell. And right now it's getting a little too good, and it's hard to tell. Like, we've had CFOs send money to other CFOs via deepfake because they heard them say it on the phone. That's
Yeah.
already happened. And AI is not even that great right now. It's still in its infancy, but when it gets really, really good, those biological defenses that we have when we see someone, it's going to shatter those,
Mm.
because now you can't trust what you read, can't trust what you see, and you can't trust what you hear. We better be zero trust by that point, because it's going to get very scary out there.
Because and I think it also, to that point, the whole preparedness things, it's suddenly we're back to square one,
Yeah,
right? Having to completely reset and start again.
definitely, because people are threat actors, because everything we have built previously, threat actors have found a brilliant way to use it against us. So
Mm,
like encryption is in was designed to be a security tool, and it is a security tool because it was designed to keep our information confidential. What threat actors did, they took that and they created ransomware.
mm.
And they say, hey, we're going to use encryption and we're going to encrypt your own data and we're going to make you buy your own data back.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when it comes to AI, we've seen some AI attacks start to happen, but as the threat actors begin to understand AI and how to leverage it against human behavior, that is going to be huge when it comes to
Mm,
digital social engineering. Like, hey, now I can make this person see what I want them to see and hear what I want them to hear. Like, how can I leverage this for my own personal gain? Because organizations already, they're trying to leverage it for their own personal gain by different uh, ads and marketing
mm,
campaigns that exist out there. The threat actor is going to start to leverage that against us. Like, I can prey on these principles of influence of people, and you can sit on a Zoom call, or you can sit on a video call of any sort with somebody and talk to a deep fake version of whomever, and you feel that it's real and you're
yeah.
excited about it, but actually it's not. It's like, hey, it could be whatever. It can be a fake sales call. It can be a fake whatever. People need to be prepared to face those kind of things. Even deep fakes in voice now over phone calls. Like, can you
Yeah.
trust that you're talking to who you think you're talking to? Before, it's like, hey, the answer was I would pick up the phone and call that person.
Mm.
Is the answer is still I will pick up the phone and call that person? It's like, hey, Susan, is this you? Like, yeah, are you sure? That kind of thing. Like, yeah, you called me, didn't you? Like, oh yeah, I did call you. So like, and it's really gonna change the game in digital social engineering, and we're already starting to see it a little bit. I think
Yep.
it's going to catapult into like the stratosphere over the next 5 years.
I think it's almost to the point where even those kind of non-physical interactions where, let's say, it's over the phone, that we're almost gonna have to find a way where we can like, in the way that we use sort of various ways to validate identity, right? We're going to have to do the same, right? To say, hey, Dr. Huffman, can you identify yourself by whatever, your face ID, etc., so that I can confirm that I'm talking to you before we have the rest of this conversation. So I yeah, I think that that's kind of where, like, uh, the whole how we approach preparedness and even awareness to an extent is just going to shift so much over
Yeah.
the next few years. And I think, I mean, you're right on the cutting edge of this, that we must still be sort of at the infancy of where we can craft what that preparedness is going to look like.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't think we've taken a hard enough look at it. We spent so much time in awareness. I don't even think most people have even started with
Mm,
preparedness outside of a technical stint. When we start talking about psychological threats, I've worked with a few organizations, and they asked the same thing, like, hey, could you verify yourself before you call? Like, what should we do? I was like, if you have this was a government entity, like, if you have something super secret, super important, you can have like a code phrase, like, when the cow jumps over the moon, my stomach hurts, something along the lines of that.
uh,
Something that deep fakes haven't even gone close into, like, you can't fake that. If it's that confidential, if it's that secret, you may need to go that far. Because if you're worried that, hey, someone or something or some organization is really, really, really targeting you in these
Yeah.
ways and you can't make it go away, you
Yeah.
may need to go that far, because the vocal deep fakes now it's down to less than 20 seconds. 20
Mm.
seconds of vocal data will train a deep fake to sound
Amazing.
okay. Because we hear in music all the time. It's like musicians
Yeah.
no longer die. Like, you can get a new Elvis record, you can get a
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
Michael Jackson, Prince, Tupac, and it sounds good. And people are releasing
Yeah.
music now, and other people are like, that sounds like AI, but it's
Mm.
actually just the artist in their new song. Or an artist comes out with a song and it's like, that's not me, that's AI. And as it gets that good and it starts training itself on other people, on public figures or people that you're not even familiar with, uh, it's going to be hard to trust even the vocal data. And
Mm.
soon it's going to be hard to trust what you even see online.
Yeah.
So that zero trust posture is going to have to happen on a psychological perspective for people as well. If not, that 90% is going to stay 90%. And it's just going to stay stagnant, or if not, move up. Threat actors
Yeah.
are going to go for the most vulnerable thing. Like, if I can get you to give me your credentials, it doesn't matter what you can do.
Mm.
Doesn't matter what you can do at all.
Absolutely. I mean, talking about artists, I'd say that ever since the days that autotune was introduced, we don't know whether we're listening to the real artist or not.
Because as AI and deepfakes begin to hit, when threat actors start to choose to use some of these things against us, it is clear you can't tell. But it got even worse when we start like photography filters
Yeah.
and you start adding filters to it. It's like, hey, it's real or AI, but we filtered everybody.
Yeah.
It tanked even more because people
Mm.
just can't tell. Um, and so and this is in its infancy. There's some bad AI out there because a lot of people, they look at like the fingers. There's like 7, 8 fingers on one hand or something like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
to give it away. But the good ones that exist out there, and the modern ones, are starting to get better. Like, the hands are uh, starting to have just 5
Mm.
fingers rather than extra limbs going out there or
Mm.
something like that. This is just leading us to, how do we as a public, including security professionals, can we tell the difference? And because we can't tell the difference, now what? It's like, now what? And threat actors, we know this is a vulnerability where even if you look, you just kind of glancing, you can't tell. Vocal data is, we have videos now.
Mm.
It's the latest study in AI videos that exist. That's like 30%, 35% right now. We're not near data saturation yet. So, but it still is less than a coin flip, which is still
Yeah.
telling me we can't tell the difference. If we can tell the difference as a public, the number I was looking for is like greater than 70%. Because that
Yeah.
means it's more than a coin flip, is much more than a coin. We can actually tell the difference.
Yeah.
It's less than a coin flip, and it's much less than a coin flip that we can't tell the difference between what's real and what has been manipulated by computers.
I mean, Dr. Huffman, I know we have recorded for a long time here. I've taken a lot of your time, but you don't leave me with a lot of hope with that point you made, right? That already today, that the probabilities of us being able to look at an image, listen to sound, and us being able to accurately determine whether it is fake or real is significantly less than a coin flip. And then as we feed these AI models with more data, right, they're only going to get better. So like, just taking your message about we've got to rethink potentially how we present awareness. We absolutely have got to rethink how we make ourselves more prepared to how we respond to whether it's as individuals or as organizations being the victim of cyber attacks. But I think the key point you're making here is that we need to really think like, but we can't leave necessarily sort of human emotion out of that, right? It's so fundamental to how we prepare each other, how we react in those situations. And that's the only way we're going to get better collectively at managing cyber incidents.
Definitely. And I would say not all hope's lost. I think there's a lot of progress to be made because everything. One thing I'm pride myself off of with my research is that we're not selling anything, um, and there's a fix to it. There's a psychological like ways that we could address this
Mm.
where we don't have to be the 90%. If we cut the 90% to the 70%, we have taken hundreds of billions of dollars away
Yeah.
from cyber criminals. Um,
Yeah.
and understanding that the problem is not technology doesn't mean like, hey, we got to innovate something new. It's just that we got to change how we train. We
Yeah.
got to change how we think. We got to understand the environment a little bit more and how you're psychologically more vulnerable face online than face to face. Like no one's giving their credit card information up face to face. No one's giving their
Yeah.
bank account
Yeah.
information up. It's just not
Yeah.
happening. We do it online,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, I would never do that. Like, yeah, we do. It's like traffic. Everyone sucks at driving, but no one's a bad driver if you ask them. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
like yes, you will. There's a way to get to
Uh,
everybody.
uh,
So
absolutely.
we can fix this and we can address this, and it's absolutely free to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely free to do.
And yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of it. So, Dr. Hoffman, it's been such a pleasure and such an education having you on the podcast. I know when preparing, I know you're a huge Will Smith fan, and you and I are both big fans of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We had planned on incorporating sort of lessons in cyber from Fresh Prince, but we'll just have to leave that for when you're next on our podcast. But
Oh,
thank you so
can't
much,
wait.
Dr. Huffman.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Thank you. Much love.
Appreciate it. It's fantastic.